Hi, GDG is a very interesting developer community.
I'm glad somebody has asked this question.
This is where the magic happens.
This is primarily a question and answer show, so if any of you out there would like to ask questions.
Hi everyone, I'm Paul Kinlan and welcome to our fourth installment of the Chrome Apps weekly roundup of all things latest and greatest. This week is about file storage APIs. We are actually missing the most important person of the Hangout at the moment.
We are.
So he'll be here soon, we hope. But anyway, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Paul Kinlan. I'm a developer advocate at Google, and I'm working on the Chrome Apps project, kind of how to get developers interested, excited, and kind of learn more about the platform that we're building into Chrome. And I would like to introduce Paul Lewis.
Oh, as you said, I'm Paul Lewis. I'm a developer programs engineer here at Google, also on the Chrome Apps team, and I sort of write tutorials, samples, and help developers build their apps.
Mm-hmm. Generally kick-ass WebGL stuff.
That's also what I do, what I try to do.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. As you can tell, we're both English, but we're broadcasting from Mountain View. So it's kind of weird. We're all in weird time zones. It's crazy. And on our Hangout, I hope we can switch to him okay, but on our Hangout, we've got Renato.
Hello, I'm Renato Mangini. I speak from Brazil, and I also Chrome developer engineer for the developer relations team. Yeah, and let's go.
All right, awesome.
Cool. So we are waiting on one person, Eric Bidelman. He's our developer relations guru for File System API. I believe he has a book as well about the file system change, like the file system API.
No doubt he will tell us all about that.
Yes, with his Amazon referral code in.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes, he has a book. We're waiting for him. He should be here pretty soon, and he's going to show you some really cool stuff. But before we do that, I'd just like to kind of pass over to Renato to actually talk about some of the changes that have happened in the platform this week.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. This week, the last 2 weeks, we have one very big change on the window object. Before you used the methods to control the window using the window API, and like focus and minimize, maximize, and other controlling methods, and you use those methods on the same object, the same window object you are using to the DOM that expose the DOM to your JavaScript code. However, with this week we landed a change that there is a wrapper around the DOM, and this wrapper contains all the windowing APIs, and you can access the same old DOM object as before using the child.dom method object property on the window.
So
now you have the sorry, go ahead.
I was going to ask you a question about it. So if before you're getting a reference to a window and you were calling, I don't know, create element on the document inside that window or something like that, now you have to go via this DOM.
Yeah, child.dom.
Okay.
Before you called the focus, for example, and the create element at the same object, and now you have to now you have the DOM element is the same DOM window you were using to, but this object is a property of a high-level app window object. Cool. And
So
this app window object contains all the specific methods for the window API.
Okay, so that gives us the ability to say like minimize and maximize and those types of things. Are there kind of very specific window APIs as opposed to DOM level APIs?
Yeah, exactly. He can get this this app window high level object using the current methods. You just call chrome.app.window.current method, and you get the reference for this app window object. And you also get this reference when you create a window. You get this reference back, so you can use it, or you can access directly using the current.
Yeah. So I'm presuming anyone who's built any applications which use post message to communicate between windows, which I think one of the photo booth demos does. I'm presuming we're going to have to change the code to actually just map that, but it shouldn't be too much of a change.
Yeah, instead of accessing the window object returned by create to make changes on the DOM object, you have to pass the child.dom instead of the window itself.
Cool.
Awesome.
Okay. And the second change is the media galleries .get media file system is no longer experimental, and you have to have a specific permission for a media galleries read. We didn't mention the media galleries yet here, but we will have a session in the future to talk about that. But if you have already developed something using the media galleries, just be warned that it's not experimental anymore.
Can you explain briefly what the media gallery API is?
Yeah, when you call the get media file systems, you get access to all the file systems that contain medias, photos, videos, and etc. For example, if you plug in a camera or a USB drive, you can access these objects in a kind of sandboxed file system that you only have read permissions.
Good news, folks. We have Eric Bidelman.
Hey.
He's here. He's ready.
Hey.
Cool.
What's up, guys? How are you?
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Fancy seeing you.
You guys flew in just for this? That's
Yes.
great.
Wow.
Fantastic.
It was an opportunity to hang out with you, so
That's beautiful.
we're only human, mate. Yeah, couldn't turn it down.
Sorry, I'm late.
Cool. So we've just
Continue
gone. Well, it's up to you now.
It's up to me.
Get straight into it, please.
Want to talk about the file system API?
We're going to talk about file
yeah.
systems.
So just as a quick background, last week, guys, in case you didn't catch it, we talked about the storage APIs, chrome.storage.local and chrome.storage.sync, which is great if you're going to be storing, say, system settings, app settings and app state and things like that, so small bits of data. But when it comes to storing blobs and bigger files, then the file system API is your best friend, and so we get Eric in to talk about that.
That's right. That's right. Come
Can you
in.
tell us about your book, please? We've already pimped it.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I actually really enjoy the HTML5 File System API is what these guys are alluding to, and also the Chrome File System API that sort of extends the W3C API. But yeah, I got pretty excited about it one day, and I decided to write a book on it. So if you are interested in what we're talking about today, go check that out. I'm not going to pub it; these guys have already done that for me. But if we want to just share my screen, we'll just start off with a demo. Confirmation.
I don't know. Do we get confirmation that the screen is now shared?
Just want to make sure people are.
Yes,
all
we
right,
do. We're good.
We have confirmation. All right. So I built a quick little sort of Google Drive upload client, a Chrome app that you can sort of drag and drop files onto. You can upload them to Google Docs, and it uses both the Chrome file system API and also the W3C just open web API. So let's give this a go. You can see I'm just going to click my Drive icon here. So this is the app. It's not that glorious right now. There we go. So we just pulled in some of my Google Docs from Google Drive. Got the list here. I can open these in Drive. I can refresh this. This is a frameless app, so I've implemented my own close button with some of the newer stuff that you guys probably cover without me there. But we're missing one thing here, and that is amazing icons on this left corner here. So typically, right, you have like file icons. For an audio file, you'd see like a little audio icon, or a text file, you'd see kind of a text icon. So we don't have that here. What's going on? Well, of course, we can use our friendly inspector. And so if we actually pull up the console, you see all of these crazy console errors, and this is our worst and best friend at the same time, CSP, the Content Security Policy. So you can see what's happening is I've just requested all my docs from Google Doc, and I'm pulling them down, and I'm trying to load these image files. So it's coming from some kind of ssl.gstatic.com domain, not within our app, and I'm getting these sort of not same origin errors.
Can you explain a little bit why we have these errors in place?
So CSP is generally a great thing for the web. It's a great thing for apps. It makes your app more secure. It gives you some guarantees about where information is coming from. And so it's basically a security thing. It's a great security feature. And one thing that's on by default is not being able to just set an image source tag or a video source. You actually have to pull the asset into your application and import it somehow. So, with the
I think just to go on to one extra little bit there, is this is actually a relatively big change for web developers, right? Web developers normally expect to be able to reference an image source file, pull it straight in, and just start working with it. And when you go to generally the native systems like iPhone and Android, is that they're very much more used to actually downloading the assets inside the application and deal with them that way. I think, well, today we're going to talk about why we're going to do this and kind of how developers can.
Yeah. We've been saying this for weeks, and you'll hear us say it over and over again. Offline first. It really is how these apps need to be built. You need to be thinking offline first, and then how do I get additional stuff remotely if needed.
That's a really good point. I mean, CSP is there for security, but it's also in place for trying to make the app more offline. So it should work offline first. And one way to do that is not being able to reference an image anywhere on the web. You have to actually sort of bring it into your application. So I have this is the sample, the Google Drive sample. I'm not going to show you all the code here, but basically what I'm doing is I'm making a request to their Google Drive API, making the feed request.
Can I just ask one thing?
Yeah.
We always get this question all the time.
Sure.
What editor are you using?
It's a Sublime Text to Apply to Us. It's my favorite editor. It's fantastic. I used to be a TextMate fan, but Sublime.
It's Sublime.
No pun intended. It's a great editor. It's got a lot of plugins you can install for it, so I highly recommend it if you're doing any kind of front end development. So here we are back in the G Drive app. And basically, I'm just making an AJAX request, right? I'm using Angular.js, so it's got some nice little HTTP wrappers. So I'm making it to the main doc list feed. And sort of here's the magic here in the success callback. So I pull down the entries from the feed, and you can see I've got this handy sort of uncomment for CSP. So right now what this tries to do is, again, just set an image source to that G static URL we saw. And since that's not of the origin of my application, it's going to fail. It's going to fail CSP. So instead what we're going to do is we're going to make that AJAX request to that image file, right? And then we're going to save it. We're going to create a blob URL from that. So essentially what we're doing is making AJAX request, bringing in the image to our application locally, and then creating like a URL handle to that image. So then CSP hopefully should work out for us. So if we go back to the app, refresh the app because I made a code change. Check out our console. So this time, boom, we have fantastic little glorious images and icons on the left there.
Oh, so in this case, you're just getting the blob from the XML HTTP request, not even saving it locally.
That's right. So in this case, this is sort of a progression here, Paul.
Oh, that's cool.
But yeah, so we made an XHR. You can see I have like 100 of these icons that I've just fetched, right? Just using XML HTTP request. And then I've used the create object URL to create a blob to those. So if you actually right-click these guys, right, inspect the element in the inspector, you can see that these image sources are all blob URLs. So they're not just referencing the normal icon file that I got from the feed, but we actually created a handle for those files. So that's cool. Right now we have images, we have icons, we're fetching them.
But like you said, you've got 100 of those requests firing off, right? So if somebody's off the network or whatever,
exactly,
they're stuffed.
Right. So if I switch Wi-Fi off, which I'm not, but you're absolutely right. This won't work offline. We're getting a bunch of invalid images, and if I refresh this, you can see in my console, right? There's another 100 of these things being. Every time I get my new feed, my new list of docs, it's coming back with 100 new image requests. So that's ideal. It's not ideal for offline. It's ideal for performance. So what we can do is I've implemented this amazing success callback with file system caching method. So what this guy is going to do is actually do the same thing. So request all the images using XHR, create blob URLs from them. But at the same time, it's going to save those images using the file system API. So we're essentially just caching all those icon files and saving them for later. And so the meat of that looks like this. We'll just make that XML HTTP request as a blob. So we'll pull down all the images. We'll get the blob. So we'll essentially get the image file from the response. And then we'll write that image file out to the file system API. And so that write method is up here. It's pretty simple. So this is boilerplate sort of how you use the HTML5 File System API. You essentially get this root directory representing the root of your application where you can store files. We'll give it a folder name. I'll just call it test folder, right? We'll create that folder if it doesn't exist in our app. And then we'll just essentially loop through all these and write each blob. So we'll call get file. It'll create this file for us. If it doesn't exist, create a writer object, so we're writing data to this file entry. Can set up event handlers for errors or if there's, when the write is complete. And this call file writer.write, and we'll just write that blob out. So XHR in the images, 100 of those guys, and then write each of them locally to the file system URL, or file system API, excuse me. So I'm going to switch my callback out to the amazing one with caching and give us a refresh. All right, so to the user, nothing new is happening, right? We got the images, it's all working splendidly. But what you see in my console now is that we made the image request, but we also wrote 100 files out to the file system API. So if I refresh this, hopefully what you don't see here in the console now is 100 X8jars and 100 writes. So indeed, we do have local files, and we can, again, verify that a couple ways. We can go into the inspector, and we can see that now these image sources are set to file system URIs instead of blob URLs. So these are being cached. These are local to our app now.
So I noticed you've got temporary storage.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit about temporary storage?
Sure. So the file system API has two sort of storage modes. One is the ability to store temporary files. It's great for caching. In this case, we're pulling an image, we're caching them. You're not guaranteed to have data there when you fetch it the second time. So as sort of space requirements and space becomes an issue, like Chrome and the browser will kick that out. So they'll evict data. Persistent storage is the other type of storage, and that's just what it sounds like. It's persistent. And so you're guaranteed to always have that data unless the user or yourself revokes.
So how much storage do you have? I mean, so is temporary storage flexible, or is it?
It's so temporary storage is it's a per origin basis. But with the Chrome APIs, you can actually request unlimited storage.
Yeah.
Right. So using the unlimited storage in the manifest file, that's a great way to just say, you know, my app can store whatever it needs to. There's going to be no space requirements, and then you can request as much as you need, basically. So very cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. and just I want to point out one last thing. I'm using Canary for this, and so I want to plug. We just added file system API support into the DevTools, which is really cool.
Seriously?
Yeah, you guys probably noticed, didn't you?
No, I did not know this.
So under resource, this is like my #1 requested feature for a long time. It's actually really hard.
I could actually swear this is a question on the Q&A.
Is it? Well, check that one off the list. But this is like, the hardest part is actually knowing what's in the file system. And so by now having DevTools support, this is just huge. So if I click on this, I can see that, yes, that folder I created, that test folder, apologies if this is really small. I open the test folder, and all those images, all those icons have been cached and stored in the file system. And here's a pro tip. The only reason I'm using a folder here is just to be able to delete it very quickly. So I can come down here in the DevTools and just nuke that folder.
Oh.
Yeah, and so if I refresh it now, my app is going to go through that whole process of making X8jars, pulling that back in, and now they're recached again.
That's pretty cool. So I have one question for you, right?
Sure.
This doesn't necessarily relate to the file system API. When you did request type equals blob, did you have to do anything special to the requests? Because I've literally never been able to get response or response type blob ever working.
Really?
Yeah.
That sounds like a user error call.
Error between the chair and the keyboard, my friend.
There's this little bit right here is the only really magic you need. So instead of pulling, normally X8jar pulls text in, right? And you have to do crazy things like base64 encode text. Now you can set a response type to blob, and it just acts as a binary file.
Nice. So I've in the past I've always had to use array buffer and then convert the array buffer to the blob, and so cool.
That's true. At some point, I think Chrome only supported array buffer, but we've changed that. We added blob support, so you don't have to go from array buffer to blob and like back and forth.
Sounds a lot cleaner.
Yeah, it's a lot cleaner. And obviously, like the big use case here is for caching things that are not native to your application, but bringing them in, whether it's video, whether it's images, whether it's any type of static asset.
So earlier on, you said that the Chrome apps version of this API is slightly different to the W3C. What are the main differences that developers need to be aware of?
Right. Good call. So before I do that, I just want to plug, if you're interested in what we just showed there with the file system, writing data, writing folders, check out our HTML5 Rocks article that I'm showing right now. That is all about the W3C HTML5 API. But what Chrome does in particular is, and this is the documentation page for it, is extend sort of the capabilities of the file system API. So we have Chrome.filesystem, which has a slew of APIs under it. The biggest thing is that unlike the W3C API, you can actually save as. So there's like save as functionality in this API. You can open a file and actually write out to outside of the browser space. So you can choose any file on your hard drive, right, and then read and write to that file. So it's sort of breaking out of this browser security model that the file system, the HTML5 one has.
So the interesting thing, I think it's really interesting anyway.
I think it's interesting too.
I don't even know where this is going. What do you
You'll know
find
where this is
interesting?
going
Wait.
because it's Netty
No.
It's Netty really, or web intents when everyone
When you're allowed to.
when I'm allowed to say the word web intents.
It's a big shock that you bring up web intents in this.
Dude, I'm trying to get it everywhere.
I've noticed.
Take it without fail.
It's like a rash. That's a bad thing.
Generally speaking, yes.
So the interesting thing is that one of the things with the Chrome apps kind of effort is that in theory you should be able to find a file on your file system, right-click, open with, and then find a web application or your native app here,
Right.
and open that file inside your preferred application. We're not quite there just yet, but there's a series of command line flags which I can't remember off the top of my head, where you can launch your application with a parameter which is a name to a file on your page, like in your file systems, like // like program files / images or whatever it is, how they do it on Windows. Specify the file, and then in the onLaunched command, there's a data element. That data is the intent object, and once you have a reference to the file, because if it comes in as a file object rather than a blob into your app, you know it's a file on the user system. But you can't write to it, right, properly. You don't have enough permissions. And the theory is, and it's what we're still working on, is that you get writable file entry for that intent object. That converts it to something that you can read and write to, and then you can offer the kind of like progressive save rather than the way web intents works is like you'll send something out to another application, edit it, and then bring it back into your app, and that doesn't work so well for native applications where you want to kind of write the document and just keep saving,
auto-save, right? That's a great use case right there.
And that's kind of exactly the type of thing that we're trying to do, is allow you to launch your application with web intents, but then kind of enhance the file system capabilities with this API.
Do you guys want to? Should we just show a quick demo of like some of the Chrome file system API in action, sort of reading and writing a file out?
By all means.
It doesn't use web intents, but I think what Paul was saying.
Don't show it. I don't want to see it. Do not want to see it.
For another time.
But actually, I mean, the thing you were saying about the open with, that did come up in the Q&A in previous weeks, so it's actually really good that we are headed in that direction.
Yeah.
So that answers that question really well.
Yeah, so we can see a demo.
Yeah, so there's another demo in our GitHub project page for the Chrome app samples, and that's just this sort of basic app for file system access, and this is using the Chrome. Come on, your tab page. There we go. And can we just make sure we're sharing my screen? So, basic demo. It's essentially just a file picker. Nothing new here, right? You can do this on the web today. But what I'm going to do is select a file. Let's see. We'll do this awesome web page. So I've just selected a web page. I've read it as a text file. And this is using the file read API. I've read that HTML file. Here's all the HTML. I can go ahead and edit this file if I wanted to. This is just an example of an HTML5 Rocks article that I've started, not finished. Don't tell anybody. But what we can do now that the regular HTML5 file system API can do is actually save out this file. We can save this anywhere on our hard drive, which is really, really cool. So I've implemented a save as button. I can call this debugging2.html and save this to my desktop. And boom, when I do that, the file is going to be saved. And just to show you, I'm going to reopen that file I just saved out in this application. So debugging2 that we just saved out. And well, I didn't change anything, but
the path did.
The path did. That's right. So you can tell it's nice job. Nice job.
Thanks.
So we've just read in a file. We've opened a file for reading, and we've also saved a file to whatever name we want. And that's sort of one of these, just one of many extensions that this.
So this is on our GitHub repository.
This sample is on our GitHub repository. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Cool.
So check it out.
And is your Google Drive uploader there as well?
Yep. So those are both samples in the repository.
Okay. So we should probably share them after in the program notes and maybe as a post.
Yep. And just as a caveat, what the G Drive, Google Drive example doesn't have is the file system stuff integrated. So I'll actually check that in later today and make sure the caching works, so you guys can check that out.
So when somebody comes to uninstall the app, what happens to the files that they've thrown into the file system? Are they just removed? Yeah.
Good question.
Yes.
Yeah. When can I take this step in?
Yeah.
I thought I answered. You can answer as well.
Go, Renato, go!
Yes, when you uninstall an app out of the file system, the app requested is totally removed. When you install it back, if the same app requests a file system, a new fresh file system is assigned to. So there's no reuse of this sandboxed file system area. It's totally to your app while it's installed, and when you remove it's done.
Yeah, that's great.
I mean, the theory is, right, you can actually go and find this directory inside your file system, but you can't easily read the files because all the directory names, everything's obfuscated. So you can't actually discern kind of any of the information.
Yeah, as a normal user, it's actually quite difficult to know what's going on under the hood.
And then to answer not even to answer the point because no one actually asked the question, but just to go full loop, I'll say, wow, I can't even believe I said that.
Well, you did.
I did.
And the internet never forgets. It's there on record, my friend.
If you say something to the desktop like you did before, that's a different type of thing, right? That's saved to your file system. It'll always be there regardless of whether your application's been removed or not.
All right. So this is so the difference is if you save it out like with the extended permissions, then great, off you go. It's not going to get removed when you uninstall the app.
Yeah, I know. Also, just to kind of, I think one final point. I know the Chrome Apps team are really interested in getting people's feedback about how we kind of work with images and data and pull them in, because it is a change from the way that we do it on the web. Normal native app developers are kind of pretty used to this way of, download the image, cache it somewhere, and then display it inside the app. And it's a big change for web developers, and we want your feedback to see if we can make it as smooth as possible. I don't know whether we'll see the just pure reference to external images coming back in. Because we can't control it, right? That's the whole point, right? Is that if you're in control, and we can maybe provide a framework like you did with File.js, just to go off and kind of start caching things, make it a little bit easier for developers to go.
I think some kind of really interesting, super simple, easy to use like caching library on top of a lot of this new stuff. It would be, very very trivial to write, but very helpful, I think, for a lot of it.
And you've already written like an API helper for file system.
You plugged me before I plugged myself.
Yeah. So when we do the web intents one, you've got to big me up like crazy, man.
Oh, really? Okay. I'm all over it, man. I'm all over it. But so I wrote this library called Filer.js that Paul alluded to, and it's really great if you want to work with the file system APIs in general. It kind of wraps everything in LS and
nice simpler.
Yeah, like a Unix type command file, copy, move. There's good stuff there, and so it abstracts a lot of the asynchronous mumbo jumbo that you have to go through.
So actually, we have a question that normally people ask is why are our APIs synchronous or asynchronous? Sorry, not synchronous.
Yeah, let's not make.
Should we just answer that question now?
Let's do that.
Let's take care of it. Who wants to answer it?
Who wants to answer it? Oh no! No, so I know. It's like,
I don't know.
So the Chrome team are really keen on making sure that the browser, the whole user experience, never blocks. And particularly when we're dealing with data, even if it is to the Chrome Storage API, not particularly the File System API. We want to make sure the user experience never blocks, because local storage API has to block. At the moment you save a key and it does a whole lot of weird stuff where it opens the entire data space storage file behind the scenes and writes it back in and pulls it back out. With an asynchronous API, we can make sure we're consistent across tabs, across windows, applications, all those types of things. But also we can provide an experience that doesn't block. And I think that's the biggest one, and that's the biggest one that they're...
For this API, right, we're talking about a ton of... You saw me write 100 images out to... We're doing disk I/O, right?
Yes.
And that's the last thing you want to do is block your user experience doing...
Especially if you fling the whole user interface, you scroll down 1,000 items, you don't want to have to kind of fire up a whole lot of requests. And
I mean, arguably, you could be downloading a massive video file as well, right? And writing that might take some time. I mean, there's no guarantee that the thing you're writing to is going to be quick storage, right? So imagine writing a big file to slow storage. Your app just hangs. Users get upset. Oh, it's all bad.
Yeah. I mean, we when you look at Node.js as well, right? We see all these APIs now like pretty much async only. We're trying to get make sure no one blocks. So developers, especially JavaScript developers, are starting to get used to it. It's just like the mind shift from, well, I had a key value pair originally, and it was synchronous. I just saved some data and it went and persisted, and now they're having to move into this async model. And maybe we can provide some wrappers like Backbone did when you were doing some experiment. Not Backbone, Launcher. When Paul was experimenting with Launcher, right? I mean, that is inherently an asynchronous API. And
I mean, one of the challenges I think for developers on this is, if you have a number of operations that that need to complete, and they're going to happen asynchronously, and you want to coordinate an action when several of those have actually completed. That's a challenge, and I think it's a different mindset that you need to be in.
So I happened to write a library.
Did you?
Yes, I did.
That's funny.
It's almost as if you knew about it.
Goodness.
Observables.js. It was an experimental library, but the idea is it's
like deferred objects, or
it's just any normal asynchronous callback. But what you basically say is it monitors changes on an object. So if you have a callback which say manipulates a JSON object, which is latitude and longitude, doesn't particularly care about the async API on the geolocation API. It just says, well, this data when it's updated, I'll watch for it, and then when all these other 3 other different variables have also updated, fire this piece of logic. And
so you basically implemented object.observe before it was time.
Maybe.
Does everybody know what object.observe is?
Should we?
I do, but I would love to hear you explain it.
Well, I searched the web and I'll probably find interesting links. Object.observe is the ability to actually do exactly what you're saying, but natively in the browser. So a lot of MVC frameworks, for instance, use sort of dirty checking to know what's changed in an object and then update their data binding. Instead, object.observe is something that's being spec'd out in the TC 39, whatever group it is. There's so many groups. But it's being spec'd out, and it actually brings this natively to the browser, so you can instantiate an object and know exactly what's changed on it, what properties have been added or removed. So essentially, no more dirty checking. We can know this in a performant way now, and so MVC frameworks are going to definitely benefit from this.
That's interesting.
Eric, this the observer is already on Canary, right?
It's not. There's actually, if you just do a search on object.observe, there's been a couple great posts already on it, and there's a special build of Chromium that has it implemented that you can start playing around. There's a really fantastic demo too.
It's interesting.
I think it's I think there's a implementation already, because last week I gave a talk and I used the observer on my I/O slides and it worked.
See, it's Trailblazer.
I think it just landed. It's recent stuff.
That's pretty cool. So yeah, give that a shot. See,
it's going to be so cool for data binding.
It's going to be cool in any number of ways. I mean, when I wrote the 3D engine, one of the biggest challenges is when objects change.
We've been pimping everything. Everyone else. What's the name of your engine?
It's all right. Let's not go there. But
okay, do you want to hear what I did on this talk? I put some observers on the slides themselves, and every time a class changed, I called a specific JavaScript function, and this JavaScript function got the slide color, the most used color on the slide, and sent through USB to DMX Lightning hardware. So I changed the stage color, background color, when I switched from one slide to the other.
No way. So what you actually were just using the Chrome USB API to make everything awesome as you were presenting.
Yeah, it was a demo for 1,000 people, and it worked. I'm waiting for the organization guys. No, it's not ready yet. It will probably be in mid of this week.
That's definitely something we're going to be showing.
So you do realize, because we've got a hackathon next week. It's an internal one. He can't actually do that demo. If he comes on and shows off his thing at the end of 2 days.
Yeah, you're barred. Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely.
So Renato, it sounds like, just to clarify, it sounds like you're using mutation observers and not object.observe, which are
true.
Clarify for everyone.
That's true. Yeah.
Actually, observers are cool too. We should probably do an amazing session on that sometime.
Yeah, mutation observers.
Yeah. Two different things, but similar type. You just watch for changes.
Yes.
Whether it's at the object level or at the DOM level.
Cool.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Sorry about that.
No problem, man.
Should we switch to the Q&A then?
I think we should go to the Q&A.
Q&A.
What kind of questions people have got this week?
One last thing, Eric. Can we discuss about the use case from Chrome Storage and File System API? I'm a developer. Why should I use Chrome Storage or File System APIs, and when?
Well, everybody knows File System API is way better. Just like web intents is the way better for everything. No, I'm just kidding.
But not about web intents.
Yeah.
You guys.
So there's a couple of different use cases. I mean, you can definitely you could store everything in the file system API if you wanted to. But Chrome storage has the really great ability to do syncing. So there's sync that's involved. You don't, as a developer, have to worry about syncing data from your client and keeping things across different installs of your application. So that's one super handy thing about Chrome Storage API. The other thing is if you need small amount of data, like there's no reason not to use Chrome Storage. It's great for that. It's for small sort of chunks of data, very simple data. Think of it as a syncable solution replacement for AppCat, or excuse me, local storage.
App cache, that'd be pretty kick-ass.
That would be really kick-ass. Whereas the file system API, if you need more complex data, if you need to store and create folders, if you need to store imagery and binary files and blobs and videos and store way more stuff than basic small amount of data, that's your best bet right there, is the file system API.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So I think we have a question about kind of synchronizing. If you want to save a file and synchronize it across devices, we don't have synchronized file system API, which would be absolute killer.
That'd be really killer.
I think we haven't actually explored this pattern too much at the moment. The general thought is that if you use something like Drive, potentially using kind of some of the API that Eric used today, synchronize it through Drive, and if you want to share kind of a key and settings between two different client apps, then you share the basic kind of what to pick out back from like Drive. Via the Chrome sync storage mechanism, essentially. So whether it's tokens, security tokens, kind of, because you can do that with Google Drive at least, and then bring that back in that way. So it's not seamless. You have to integrate with Drive, but then it also allows you to integrate with Dropbox and a whole lot of those other different APIs.
If this is a use case that is of interest, we'd love to get that feedback because it's stuff that we can talk through with the engineers, and so. If that's the kind of things that you app developers want, then just let us know.
Yeah.
It's a really good point,
Yep. So on to the questions. Let me pick the nice questions. Paul, you're awesome. Thank you. No one said that.
Wait a minute.
That was downvoted, man.
I flagged as inappropriate.
Apologies, just let me refresh in 2 seconds. First question, I think the most popular one is, when will it be possible to upload from somewhere in England now. Upload. When will it be possible to upload new packaged apps, Manifest v2 on the Chrome Web Store? We don't particularly have an answer for that right now. So the thing is, right now at the moment, it's still only available in Canary and Dev. Some of it might have gone to beta channel. I'm not too sure. We want to make sure that the framework it's in a lot better state than kind of the development kind of experimental phase that we're in at the moment. So we don't have an answer right now, but we will tell you as soon as it's going to happen. And we'll talk you through the whole process about uploading it and everything like this. That doesn't mean you can't make applications and get them installed and everything, but it's a little bit more complex. You have to load them in through the kind of the load extensions menu and all that type of stuff. So it's not production ready just yet. We need a lot of feedback, and obviously this is why we're doing all these talks at the moment to kind of get this. My question though, back to you, Jarek?
I think it's Jarek.
Jarek?
Yeah, I believe he's from Poland. So
Jarek. So I apologize if I got that wrong. Just send us things that you want the Chrome Web Store to be able to do for you as well, from like the Chrome apps packaged, version 2 packaged app standpoint as well. Because if there's things that frustrate you now, we want to get those things fixed in the next versions at least. That was kind of diplomatic, wasn't it? It's kind of cool. Next question, why Chrome storage thing quota bytes per item is so small? Right now it's set to 4K. This is not enough if you wanted to store user-defined keyboard shortcuts in a medium-sized app. So I believe this is per item.
Per item. So you could store each keyboard.
Each
shortcut.
Key is a separate item.
4K for a single keyboard shortcut would be quite a lot.
Yeah. So I think it's just the way you structure your app, right? Is basically break it out into different keys for different bindings. If you have something where you can't discover those keys, because it might be like a complete custom interface, is have a mapping object to say what types of keys are inside there. But you should be able to get most of it done inside 4K.
I mean, the key to this is to understand that the Chrome.storage.sync...
Was that a pun?
No, it wasn't, but it can be now that you've asked. Is to remember that we're not aiming for a storage solution here that is storing these big chunks of data all in one go. We need to break these things down into smaller I want to say bite-sized chunks, but that's not really. Yeah. You just break it down, and like you said, it's about structuring your app and working, with those quotes. They're there because it allows us to sync better, basically.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, the more feedback that we get,
but if it's a
if every single developer says they don't,
if it's a blocker, then let us know.
Could you explain the Chrome storage sync max sustained write operation minute flag means?
Yeah. So there's the difference between the quota, which is just the amount that you can write, and then this is about how often you can write that stuff.
Right.
So again, it's stopping you from flooding loads of data to the API. Really.
Yeah. But there's a flag, which means that in theory you could change it in Chrome, I presume. But why you'd want to, because all of your users wouldn't have that flag, unfortunately. I think it's more for us
I have a question for you guys.
Go on then.
Is there a way to explicitly say I want my app to start synchronizing? Like you store a bunch of stuff and it queues it up, right? If I'm not.
Yeah, the way it kind of works is if you're offline, for instance, it will keep changing things using synchronization API, but there's nothing to say start syncing, stop syncing.
So Chrome, the browser, just handles
that. It works it out for you.
Cool.
It's supposed to be seamless for you as the developer to not have to get your hands dirty with do or don't do.
Syncing is a hard problem. The less you have to do, the better for sure.
Yes, and actually this leads on to another question. Let's say I have accidentally exceeded the maximum number of write operations per hour. Does it mean that from now on, data that I write to the Chrome storage sync is ignored, or will it be kept in local storage and synced later? That's a really good question, which I don't actually know the answer to. And we'll speak to the engineering team today, and we'll post a response onto that question. Yep. I think it's the easiest thing to say.
Yep.
Because I could tell you something, and it'll probably end up being completely wrong.
Yeah, there are only two options, but it would probably be the wrong one, right?
Yeah. Next question is, how can an automated deploy script interact with the Chrome store to upload an updated extension? If this is not currently supported, when can we expect it? It's not currently supported, and I don't know when we can expect it. I don't think it's a feature that we've opened up to anyone. So it's kind of awkward. I've spoken to quite a few developers who, as part of their build script, they want to automatically update it because the Chrome Web Store, it's manual intervention essentially, and you should be able to get around it. Right now you can't. So it's a manual operation only. Again, this is great feedback just to send back to the team.
Yeah.
Can I ask Chris to submit a bug on crbug.com?
Yes, you can.
So please, Chris.
Chris, if you're out there, bro, can you submit a new.crbug.com? Would be great.
Yeah, and we'll track it from there. And email me, paulkinlan@google.com, so I can star it and then refer it to the correct teams. So yes. So, right, here we go. Do you have any plans of exposing the Chrome.storage API in DevTools as it's already done with local storage and IndexedDB? And this is Jarek again. We didn't mention that with the file system API.
Yeah.
In there, we haven't got Chrome storage, have we?
We don't. I think DevTools support is one of these things. It's sort of a chicken and egg problem, at least with the file system API. Without the ability to debug, you sort of lose the ability to really create an app really quickly and learn what's going on. Same thing with IndexedDB. The sooner the better as far as DevTools support. Storage APIs for Chrome. It's going to be one of those things that the DevTools team needs to prioritize. But they're always looking for new stuff to implement. So if you think this is super important, I think you should file a bug for this too.
I was going to say, anything like this where you're, just throw it straight into new.crbug.com and let us know, and we will start chasing.
Yeah, so the Chrome team work on kind of number of start issues and a whole load of things like this. So it's
this is a good pro tip, actually. Don't put me too in the comments.
Yes.
Star it. That's the best way to let the
me too is bad grammar.
Yeah, well,
me also.
Aside from
I don't know what that's even good enough.
Aside from the linguistical issue, it's sort of more helpful to the engineering team to see stars. They can order by stars.
Yes. Yep. So a new question in from Eli Gray. Is the type save file UI coming to a anchor download attribute?
That's a great question. So as far as I know, this is a big feature request on the web today, is being able to do that save as. You save out a file that you've created in JavaScript or something. And unfortunately, I don't think anybody has a good answer for this right now. All the mailing lists and working groups, it's just as soon as you open up sort of the user's hard drive, to reading and writing data and anything outside of the browser sandbox, it's a whole security issue. So I would say, not anytime soon as far as I can tell, but this is why sort of the Chrome apps APIs have sort of expanded on the W3C, HTML5 API to do more, right? We have the permission model in the manifest. You can have some guarantees there as far as security is concerned. But this is something obviously we hope to bring to the just the sort of open web.
Yeah.
Any web app can use safe as.
So I'm going to mention web intents again. Is at some point in the future we hope that files will be able to be opened with web intents.
Yeah.
Directly from the download.
That would be cool.
Yeah, we can do the RSS feeds and atom feeds.
You should make that happen.
Yeah, well, that RSS and atom feeds is already done, and we've got plenty of developers.
But
who actually
you
love
didn't
it.
prioritize that Anchor save file, really?
Okay.
So just to point out that the download attribute is actually really powerful. With an
Yes.
attribute, you can download and then name a file anything. The only thing that it doesn't have going for it is the ability to save it wherever you want.
I think that's what the question is going, is saying, can I open it up to say save it in my pictures? For instance?
Exactly. So you can't read and write to my pictures folder. It'll just go in the browser's generic download folder.
Yeah.
But we're one step closer.
We haven't time for many more questions, unfortunately. I'm going to do two more, though. I'm a staff of University of Nigeria, and our university website is there. Has an email. Great, okay. Am I qualified to attend this show? Yes. Everyone's qualified. We don't know whether we're available with YouTube live streaming, for instance, in Nigeria. But the videos should be available worldwide after and recorded. So you have to watch. And obviously, everyone's allowed to ask questions, which is really cool. Right, I did see a question come in and pop up a second ago, which I thought was really interesting. Dan Pedal, just a general question: which kind of module patterns do you use when you're developing in JavaScript, and what do you think about things like require.js, comma.js, and the async module definition, etc.? It's a long question. I don't know whether we've got an amazing amount of time to answer it. I think we need to be able to structure our apps a lot better than we do at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
It's an absolute pain and nightmare. Whether it's done at build time, and kind of, you structure your application with modules when you're building it and developing it, but then it's all compiled into one, like min.js file, ready for deployment.
Well, I mean, the whole min.js file thing is, that's really, I wouldn't say it's bad practice, because it's really good practice for the drive-by web. It's not that it's less of an issue with apps, but the thing that comes here is that if you minify all the JavaScript, you're delivering a smaller file, but it's not the same thing as reducing the number of requests for the drive-by web, which is a really, really cool thing. So, do you see what?
Yeah, we need to do tests actually. We don't know, even though it's on the file system installed locally, whether loading 10 files in is much different from loading one in.
Yeah. So I think it bears some investigation as to what the right pattern is for allowing developers to write the best possible apps.
I just generally think, I'm going to punt on this question a little bit, is like the great thing about web application development and site development, app development with JavaScript is that we've got a lot of different libraries which you can use to your preference right now. I don't have any preference between require.js and common.js, for instance.
What I would say, though, in the context of CSP, for some of these libraries, is it's worth bearing in mind that not all the functionality that you'd be, say, for example, an MVC framework, if you're used to using that, it may be that it does some things with eval or new function or routing or things like this that under CSP rules aren't allowed. So you may find that some of the things you're trying to do on a day-to-day basis have to be adjusted in the context of Chrome apps. And there is some guidance, and we're going to be expanding on that over the coming weeks to do with MVC frameworks specifically for Chrome apps. So we're going through the commonly used frameworks, and we're documenting what's different, what you might need to adjust, and those kinds of things.
Yeah, I think the general point as well is if you've used common.js or require.js and it doesn't work in Chrome platform apps, please let us know. File a bug on crbug.com. Email us as well, because we want to make sure that all the development tools that web developers are used to and building these applications with work from day one, essentially. And if they don't, then we have to make a good decision why we're not going to fix it. If not, or just try and fix it. It's the easier thing.
This is kind of forward thinking, but I'm also really excited about ES6 modules. So a lot of this module loading that you're doing in frameworks like Require Common, you're going to be able to do it natively in JavaScript soon. So that's going to be really cool.
Yeah, I've actually seen Adi Osmani working with some of those.
Yeah, Eddie's been checking it out, been doing some investigations there, but very, very forward thinking. But it's still important to get excited about it.
Cool. I think we're done. I think we answered all the questions.
That was awesome.
It was good. It was very good having you here.
Hey, sorry I'm late, guys.
Thank you for coming to Mountain View, all the way from Mountain View. We'll make this trip regularly from London to Mountain View just to do this.
All right.
I was thinking of doing London to London.
Yes. We've got the studio works quite well. Now.
Yes.
Pretty good.
Yes.
Anyway, and diverging from what this whole thing, and trying to close this whole thing out. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, get on our Google Plus developer page, see our bug. Email me, paulkinlan@google.com. Email the lists that we have as well. Please let us know, and we'll see you next week with a topic which is TBA.
Yes, we will be putting out the
what do you want to hear?
Yeah, and the what do you want here stuff. So look out for that and let us know what you want us to cover.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye bye.